Hey everybody, welcome back to another Dice Tower review. My name is Zee Garcia.
I'm Camilla Cleghorn.
Today we're going to be taking a look at the expansion, the latest expansion that is, to Last Aurora. This is called Frozen Steel. It comes in a little box like this, because it's just cards. This is going to give you a few different modules, all card-based, and a rule book, a fold-out rule book that explains how you can fold these things into your game. You can choose just one of those, throw in a couple, throw them all in if you want to, and play the game following the basic rules modified by this. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the different modules, give you a look at what comes included in here, so you have an idea of how this might change up the game, and then we'll come right back, tell you what we thought of it. So as I already said, this expansion is modular, so here we're going to take a quick look at the different modules, and we're going to start with this first one. I will flip the rule book to remember what they're called. So the first one is Module 1, the Exploration deck here, okay? So the Exploration deck is going to be this one. It also comes with some new items. You're going to shuffle these items into the item deck. That already comes with the base game, and there's some really neat stuff in here, with my favorite probably being this unstable fuel. It allows your truck to gain 2 or 3 speed, and after moving, you have to take 2 or 4 damage to your convoy. I love it. That speed boost can definitely make the difference as to whether you make it to the Aurora or not. So probably my favorite card there. And then these are going to be new cards with a new symbol in the corner. In this case, this sort of dark blue, whereas the original ones are, what are they, orange? And so you would use these instead when you're setting up the deck of cards. Modifies the things you are able to get. So you're going to have new cards out here, some new ideas and abilities, including now a new type of gun, like this one here, which shoots, instead of ammunition, junk, they call it. That means I can load and shoot this weapon with one of these cards that I happen to have. It's not going to take any ammo from me. So that's the main new idea there. And of course, there's new actions and whatnot, which I'm not really going to go over. I don't want to necessarily show you all the cards, but that's the main first way you can change the game is by using this deck. And these item cards, you have to use them together, because again, the junk cards are going to go through some of these a little bit faster. So that is module number 1. Module number 2 there is a new enemy clan, and that's these fellas right here. They are going to be pretty nasty, and the main new twist they have is that they can recover hits if they're not fully taken out. So you'll see on the backs of the cards here that they have these spaces marked with a shield. You can still put a hit on there, but that hit will go away unless they are, again, wiped out. And then these are, which I'm not going to show you, these are the rewards for these, or rather the enemies themselves, and then the rewards on the backs of these. So I will go ahead and show you one of these early ones. Let's pick one of these two at random here. We'll do that one. You will also see that these are all based on mythology, so it's sort of Asgardian mythology. So you'll have Thor and Tyr and Loki and Heimdall, that sort of thing. So this one over here has the ambush with the convoys leading in the region receiving 1 hit in the front. Other convoys receive 1 in any of the first 2 columns there. And very cool artwork, of course, and the whole, the vibe is sort of, these guys have a medal. Thematically, they have a medal which is of alien origin, which is how they can regenerate. That's what the shields here are meant to represent. So there you go. That is the second module, that new Asgaror enemy clan. Module number 3 is the Asymmetrical starting crew, probably the simplest one of them all, and everybody is going to have 2 new starting crews instead of the ones that come from the base game and are all the same for everybody. You can now choose what you want your starting crew to be. You can be these 2 characters here, the wolves, and they will have their own abilities there. You can choose to be the mutants, and you can be the alpha mutant and the ghoul. You can be these 2, which are a little bit tied to those baddies I just showed you, Valkyrie, War Girl over here, or you can be the synthetics over here, synthetic prototype and a supply bot. So again, you begin with these two characters as your starting characters, and right out of the gate, you'll have a different set of abilities, different things that you can do. So there you go. Again, like I said, pretty straightforward. You begin with it, so you'll definitely see it and use it. And it gives you kind of your own flavor, plus a faction that you can sort of, identify with. So that's number 3, Asymmetrical Starting Crew. Then we have module number 4 here, Story Cards. Story Cards is the most complex of all the modules. It comes with the most cards as well. You're going to have these stacks of cards. You're going to shuffle and separate these based on the number on the back. And then you play the game normally, always checking during stage 1, because these two would be set aside for right now, always checking when and if this gets triggered here. So as soon as anybody is to gather resources, you interrupt that, and then you deal with this card. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at one of these. I'm going to spoil one for you just to give you the idea. So let's say it's the exploration phase. I'm about to gather some resources from a card out there in the lineup, and my opponent, one of the other players, is going to grab this card and read it to me. So it's called The Quick and the Crippled. You find a locked wooden box, and then I have a choice. I can try to pick the lock, which says attempt ABC plus D if I spend 1 ammunition, or I can ignore the box. If I ignore the box, I discard this card. That's all I do. If I attempt to open it, I'm going to draw the top card of the hits deck and see if the first letter that shows up is A or B or C. If it's one of those, I succeed. If it's not, I fail. If I spend the ammunition, it's A, B, C, or D. And then we check if I, in fact, was successful or not. This attempt range is going to be different on some cards. Some are going to say attempt AB plus C if you pay something. Or it might be different than that. So the difficulty is based on how often, how frequently that letter is first in that deck. And then again, if I do it, I pick the lock, I gain something. If I don't do it, this probably irradiates me, blows up in my face, what have you. And then this card is discarded. And then the next one is available. That's the way this works. We read that. We see if anybody else triggers this, and we read it to them and give them a choice. These are not always going to be attempts. Sometimes they are missions, something you hang on to. And when you satisfy that thing, you can either discard it or bank it or what have you. Once we're done with stage 1 and any stage 2 cards show up on top of the pile, we'll set these aside and put stage 2 in play and start using this one, and so on for stage 3. So there you go. That's how this one works. And again, this is the story cards module in the game. And then the final module is the player versus player module, which is this one here. Module number 5, player versus player. Now, to be fair, this one comes with these two things. To be fair, this is something that was already previously available as a promo pack of cards. This was a promotional Kickstarter thing that they had made available before. Now it's been sort of formalized and very lightly cleaned up and added to this expansion, and it is going to allow you to, well, attack each other. Every player gets one of these. You're going to put a token here and here at the beginning of the aggression track and the defense track. And then you replace the hits deck with this one. And again, this is what I was talking about, checking the letter. Oh, that would have been a miss if I hadn't added D. Uh-oh. So there you go. So we shuffle all that up, right? And then the players may attack each other. Now, to be perfectly transparent here, you are supposed to remove some of the bad guys. So the combat ideally is not going to overwhelm you while you're attacking all the baddies you normally would be attacking, and they're attacking you, and players are being aggressive towards each other. You are taking half of the baddies, one of the first two, one of the second pair, and one of the third and last pair, and removing them randomly from the game. So there will be less combat from that side of the game. But the players can attack each other now, and you go ahead and attack a player, you pick a gun, you da-da-da, all that stuff, you reveal one of these, you see if you hit. Let's say my gun was 2, I hit them for 2 there. My opponent is going to take damage, and they are going to, if they had the token here, if it had moved up at all, they get to reduce the hits they take equal to anything to the left of it. So let's say it was here, they get to reduce it by 1, and so they only take 1 hit. And then if they take a hit, this moves along again. And when I subject other players to hits, my aggression token will move, and at the end of the round, I'm going to collect goodies showing next to this and then reset it. And this one will also go back 1. So if you make it all the way up here, the cooldown on it just comes back 1, so you're protected for a little while longer. It keeps the players from really targeting one player and being extra aggressive to just one player at the table, because your hits just won't go through. So you're spreading around the love is the idea. So there you go. That is player versus player. A couple of other tweaks in that, but that's the general gist of it. So there you go. That is everything that you are getting in the Frozen Steel modular expansion to Last Aurora. Let's go ahead and go back up top. All right, so first of all, Last Aurora is a great game, in my opinion. I think we both very much enjoy the game. It's a Euro-style game in many ways, with a really cool, action-y theme.
Yeah.
With some luck, but a lot of strategy, with some management of things. It's a nice hybrid, is how I would think of it.
Yeah, I definitely think it falls in that hybrid middle category,
Yeah.
you know, and yes, so I do very much like the game. I think you introduced it to me in a catch-up palooza with
Yeah, I showed it to you and Mike.
Chris.
Mike didn't like it so much.
Mike not so much. And I think I remember in that catch-up palooza being surprised that I think I actually like it more than you even. I think I rated it higher. So I really like this game, and it hits that sweet spot of that, again, kind of that hybrid, you know, like there's a lot of luck in it, and it's about managing that luck, you know, so you don't mitigate a lot of it, is that management. And I bring that up because I think it's going to play into this expansion as well.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about these different modules that come in here, okay? And for me, I think a lot of these modules directly address some of the issues I have with the base game, all right?
Okay.
So we might as well go through them in the order that they are listed here on the rulebook. We have the rulebook folded out here. And there are 5 modules that come in here, okay? The first module is called the Exploration Deck, and that is going to have new cards, new exploration cards, these, that you pick a certain number based on the number of players, shuffle them into the deck, and it modifies the main deck you're playing with, the one that shows up and you can recruit from. It also has 12 new object cards that you shuffle right into the object deck, okay? And right there, especially the objects, answers a big problem that I have with the base. I say big problem. Maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic, but I thought that object deck got a little static in the game.
It did.
There are not that many different abilities in there. Many of those didn't feel impactful enough sometimes for me to give up a victory point.
Right.
Which, because every one of those you're holding is a victory point, to do whatever it does. I think these 12 shuffled in, obviously change up the deck, dilute you seeing the same card over and over, because there's quite a few repeats in there, and just give you some really fun, action-y cards, stuff that I am happy to give up a victory point for, because they're going to help you generate other things, get other things happening.
As well as I think the exploration cards that you are shuffling in give you more opportunity to get those object cards as well. I think in my plays with this module shuffled in, I was managing more object cards as well.
Right.
So one, I was more interested in getting them for the victory point as well as for the ability. There's also more opportunities, and I was really happy to see that become a larger part of the game, again, for that kind of luck mitigation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think overall, and this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but I'll mention it here before I forget, I think this expansion tackles 2 main things that I thought were a little lacking in the original game.
Okay.
And that is, it makes the game more action-y, this expansion. Like all these modules, for the most part, make the game more action-driven, A, and B, make it more likely that you'll make it to the stinking ship.
Yes.
So those 2 things are big ones, okay? And I think this first one especially helps with the action part. Okay, there's a new type of weapon in here that shoots junk, they call it, so you can give up these item cards to if you don't have ammunition, which is possible, you can still make a combat test. There's just more variety in there. This is one I am happy to throw in pretty much all the time.
Absolutely. And I think with another module we're going to talk about coming up, I'll talk about this more as well. But I think that having that new weapon that comes in, the new object cards, new exploration cards, it also gives you a little bit more, I guess, power in how you're going to craft your convoy. I found, I didn't really care for the guns that shot junk. I like the straightforward bullets, and so I went for that. But I like that it's there, and I can see in certain, again, once we get to Module 3, talking about the asymmetrical factions and stuff, then this will come into play again. But you do feel like you have a little bit more autonomy in kind of crafting your convoy and playing the way you want and really setting yourself up, going into a strategy. Not like, all right, well, this came out, oh, cool, it's the race to get the fuel because that's the only way.
Yes.
No, there are more ways to that end game, and I really like that.
There's more ways to score also. There's more cards that score.
Yes.
So that's another thing that this expansion overall, the entire Frozen Steel package, will loosen up is just sources of victory points. This is a low-scoring game. So having the game give you more carrots to chase down really will loosen up the game, make it more fun, make it so that, yes, I'm falling behind on the track, on the race, but you know what? I'm sitting on this sweet piece of tech. That gets me a point for every whatever I have. Great. Loosening that up.
Right.
Module number 2 is the new enemy clan, the Asgaror enemy clan. These guys are pretty nasty. They're pretty tough, okay? They are, again, sort of Asgardian-themed or influenced characters that have discovered this alien metal that fixes itself, that self-heals. I really like this because, again, it pushes that action-y part of the game. In the original game, playing against the basic guys, the bad guys there, the wolves or whatever they're called, it's pretty easy to wipe them out. It's pretty easy for them to not retaliate, take them out, and literally never sometimes experience the second part of combat, which is they hit you back. You can kind of reliably take them out the first time they show up.
Right.
And then it's just a source of, like, victory points or income or, like, oh, I get this card. You know what I mean? That's cool. Great. But I like that with this clan in play now, you can tick up the difficulty of those encounters. When you go to fight now, you might have a much harder time taking them out. They will heal. They will retaliate. You're going to be in more trouble. And I really like that. Again, you want to ratchet up the action-y sense of the game where it's not as... the Euro part is still there, but you want more of that combat, more of the other side of that hybrid. This is going to give you that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of taking up that difficulty a notch was interesting because you do get to see more of the game that you didn't get to before. It makes it also, I think, that much more tension building when you see who's going to get that kill shot, or I forget thematically what it is, but who gets the actual card.
Right.
Because they have this metal. They have it and they can self-heal. And I know in one of the plays, I loved it because I was the one that got the card at the end, not the object. And it ended up being an extra piece for my convoy where I got that healing metal, and so my convoy was healing each time so I could take that damage and heal. Right. Oh, it was so cool, Right. And so it's like, it's just that tension, that excitement of like, what is the outcome going to be when you finally do take them out? It has that little bit of cooperation. You really do have to like go in on it together to make sure you take it out, and the tension of who gets that. But again, tying back into that first first module, if you put in those extra objects, it doesn't feel as bad if you don't get this special medal because there are those extra objects in there that are going to be beneficial as well.
Yeah.
So these two modules, I think, also work really well together.
That's true.
With that. Because you had that more opportunity, more objects, stronger things that are tying into it to make it not feel as bad if you don't get the card. But if you do get the card, it's so sweet.
Yeah,
so sweet. There's some good ones in there.
Yeah, so this is one I would say I don't necessarily think I'll throw this one in every time, but if I want to ratchet up the difficulty a little bit, force that cooperation, like you said, where things are going to be tougher. If we want to make some progress, we might have to work together here for a moment, and then we can go back to racing to the ship. Yeah, I'll throw this in. It's not one I'll throw in every time, and again, if you put this in without Module 1, that's pretty nasty.
Yeah.
That's going to be a difficult encounter, but it's a fun flavor switch if I'm looking for, again, a little more difficulty in the game when it comes to the combat aspect of the game. All right?
Variety, absolutely.
And when I say it changes the flavor, I do mean mildly, because we're going to get to some stuff that really, really changes the flavor.
Yes. Okay, we talk about
Module number 3 is the asymmetrical starting crew, which is the smallest part of the expansion. It's also pretty easily my favorite part of the expansion.
What do you mean by the smallest?
It's the fewest things.
Oh, okay, yes, okay.
Right? You are getting
got it.
2 starting characters per player. So it's like, 8 cards? What is it? I mean, it's like literally 8 cards.
You mean footprint, like actual, yes.
Yeah, it's like the smallest thing. It could have almost been a promo. It's 8 cards. But it's the one I am the least likely to play without ever again. It is my favorite.
Do you think you would use it the first time you're teaching the game to somebody?
Maybe.
I don't know. I know, because it is so easy.
It's fairly straightforward.
Because you do have that asymmetry, but it's not completely game-changing, such as like Root, for example. Here, learn this entire faction. It's very minor, but it does give you that feeling of being a little bit broken.
Yeah,
it
makes you you. Like, I'm these characters. My convoy is run by these androids, or by these warriors, or by these people that are surviving the apocalypse, or what have you. It just makes you different.
Yeah.
The original game, yes, maybe you're right. I'll throw them in if I'm teaching someone, and that's one less thing I have to explain. But I can't see a scenario where I won't throw these in. They give you personality, asymmetry, and again, they help with that race a lot of the time. Yes, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
These characters are going to help you be better at something. The game, in many ways, I felt needed to allow you to be better at something.
Right.
You know, having played with these expansions, it became clear that it was a lot more likely that we could make it to the ship.
Right.
That we could make big plays, like a turn in which you go, wow, look at what I did. You know what I mean? Wow, look at this jump ahead I made, or look at how I took out this marauder, or what have you. So it just plays with the sandbox a little bit.
Right. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think it does give you that personality and that individual flavor, and it helps you focus. You know, this game a lot of times can be a lot of, I have to do a little bit of everything. I need to make sure I have food so I can rest my people enough to have a big turn. But I also need fuel so I can do absolutely anything. Like, you have to do everything a little bit, right? I feel like these factions help you focus. And my favorite that I played, actually, I don't remember what the name of it was, but I didn't really have to worry about fuel that much. If I could get 1 fuel just to kind of jumpstart my convoy, then I would be able to move like 7 or 8. You know, there was one turn where I went, I think it was either 8 or 9, something like that. It was a major turn, and that's after I had fallen behind quite a bit.
Right.
But I didn't have to worry about it. That's okay, because I knew as soon as that one turn came where I got a fuel, boom, I was going to be able to jump ahead. And I love that. I love that it just kind of helps you focus on one thing and kind of feel that personality. And again, giving you that sense of ownership in your convoy. This is how I want to play this faction. This is what I'm going to focus on. This, I want to strategize this way with this, which is called, I have to build it this way to really optimize this card. And it's just kind of focuses the puzzle a little bit, you know, and doesn't feel as, not that I ever thought the game was scattered at all, but it does kind of give that focus and clarity so that you can really deep dive into a specific play style or strategy. And
it's direction right up front. That's the thing. You know what I mean? It's at the beginning of the game, which is what many asymmetric games do, right? You're this. Oh, great. I have a road plan. I know what I'm good at, so I'll try to do that. Do you have to do that? No. But this is the smart play. You should choose to try to do some things in this area. By that same token, I do not think it makes the game scripted by any means. I don't think if you have the people that are good at that extra fuel, that's the only thing you can do. Not at all. It just gets you juicy powers that only you have. And it feels great.
It does. You feel powerful. I love that. You know, it's so satisfying.
I really like that one. Yeah. Now, as we flip over the sheet,
this way.
Our tune, I think, is going to change a little bit, at least for me, okay? There's 2 modules we haven't talked about, 4 and 5 here. So 4 is the biggest one, meaning the most pieces. It's a whole stack of cards, this stack of cards here, okay? And it is the story cards. It has 40 cards here with a stack for 1s, 2s, and 3s, as you would in the regular game. But this is the biggest change to the game. It's the biggest sort of flavor change. This one is literal stories that it's going to tell. So there's going to be a stack of cards as I explained this already. And then you have the trigger. When that trigger is breached by someone, you grab it. The other player will read it to you. You pick what you want to do. Make a test by flipping over a card, what have you. This is cool. It's an interesting idea, but it is a serious flavor switch.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
This is not something like the starting asymmetric crew that I would throw in all the time. Absolutely. I have to be in the mood for this. It's going to make the game longer. It's going to just switch up the play I'm used to. You know, sometimes expansions come along to games, and you play with them and you go, that's great. It's interesting. I enjoyed that. But it's not the game I fell in love with originally.
Right.
This is a different game, which I'm also enjoying, but I want to play the game I originally enjoyed. I don't always want to throw this in. I think this expansion falls solidly in that camp.
I feel like this module makes the game an experience, if that makes sense. You know, it kind of gives it that story, that flavor. You have to understand it's going to really swing that swinginess, for lack of a better word, that randomness, you know, like it's once again random. Do you pass the test and you get something really good, or do you fail and you kind of, man, that really set you back half a turn? You know, I don't think it ever like kills the game.
You usually get something anyway if you fail, but it's different. Again, it's little story snippets. They're not really connected, you know, but
it can kind of lead to those a little bit more epic moments where you do feel like, oh, that was really cool. So, you know, more of those experience kind of thing. I think for me, it is a little distracting that you have to remember, you know, because on the back, it's like, when this happens, turn this card over and resolve it. And so you have to constantly be aware or cognizant of that, which does pull your focus a little bit.
It does.
Like, oh, no, wait, did I get a resource? Oh, no. Oh, I got a resource. Oh, that was last card. You know, so you do have to be cognizant and be aware of that. It does have to be that team effort to make sure you don't forget about those cards and keep them active. So yeah, I think I do think this is a really interesting way to play, and it is one that, like you said, I would not want to play all the time, but going into it said, you know what? No, I just feel like extending this and really getting into this world and kind of making an experience out of this.
Yeah.
Seeing what happens, going on this journey, you know, and then I would want to play with it. So it's one that I'm glad it's there. It's not going to be a go-to, but I do think it does change the play enough and kind of revives it a little bit if I am feeling it a little bit stale, because I've played it a lot recently.
But it does make the game a little bit of a different game, which is why I won't put it in there every time. But again, it gets a thumbs up for me, and I think it's interesting that they put a lot of work into this deck. There's a lot in here. You know, they kind of make it a story, not driven game, but like a story game. But yeah, I definitely will not. This is not an auto-include for me in my sessions. This is going to be actually the exception rather than the rule. I've played a lot. Yeah. I feel like throwing something in weird. This will be the weird thing. All right, so the final module then is player versus player mode. And this is something that was already available, in fact, as a promo. And they included it in this expansion, all right? I already had this, in fact. I took the cards from the original one I had, the promo, put them side by side, checked them out. They're very close. So they changed a couple of the symbols that show up as hits. But other than that, it's clearly the same expansion. And I just wasn't using it already, so this is not something that is changing my mind as to what I think of this. I'm almost not considering it as part of the package. For one thing, I think it changes the flavor too much. You want that much combat, then just throw in these guys, the guys that are nasty and have their self-fixing iron. The player v player thing is not the game I'm wanting to play. There are other games that will do this without me having to sort of hijack this system.
Right.
And there's a lot of rules that this necessitates. I didn't like that many rules. So that's basically it. That one I don't really care for. So that's it. Overall then, let's get to some final thoughts.
Okay.
This game already had an expansion. It was a big expansion. It had a board. It had another mode of playing. It had new baddies. But that was like an all-encompassing thing. You played with that expansion and its baddies and its cards and what have you. I think Frozen Steel here, in many ways, feels like it should have been the first expansion.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Yeah.
It's really great. It's so fun to have modules. For one thing, I love modular expansions, but to have new starting factions, new baddies, ways to change up the game, more items, more of those, what are they called, object cards. Mm-hmm. My goodness, it just loosens up the game. It lets me play again, you know?
Right.
more ways to score victory points, more ways to make it to the ship, to shoot up the bad guys, what have you. So I really enjoy what this brings to the table. Do I like every part? No, I don't. That's the point. And some parts I'll try sparingly, every now and then. But some of the things in here are just fantastic. I doubt I'll play without them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think for me, when I look at expansions, I want more of what I love, more variety, but also that brings something a little fresh.
Yes.
That doesn't completely change the game. And I think that this expansion, each of these modules does that. The fifth module, the play PvP, there it is, the player versus player. I've not played, and I don't have an interest in playing.
Sure.
That's not my play style. But at the same time, I can look at it and say I'm glad it's there because I think that there is somebody out there that maybe does want that.
Sure.
So I don't mind. Now, if that was the whole expansion, I'd be singing a very different tune.
Well, it's considering it was a promo already also.
Yeah.
Which is weird they included this promo. I think there are promos that came out again when the game originally came out that are more interesting. Like,
really?
Like objectives. Like there's one that is the goals. You have an objective. A secret scoring objective and a special ability.
Yeah.
That's not in here, and that's a promo. I would have swapped those two things out personally. But.
Oh, interesting. For some, I thought that was just base game because I have played that. Anyway, so that's interesting. Yeah. So for me, it's like that's what I'm liking on this. Is each one changes the game just a little bit, helps give it that focus. If you maybe thought that you were playing it a little bit, you want to go deeper into strategies. Maybe you played it a couple times, something like that. Yeah. But at the same time, doesn't overhaul it to where you have to learn a new game, and you're also not married to any one of these modules. And I love that. It really it absolutely is everything I want in an expansion for a game that I don't necessarily think needed it.
Sure.
But it's like, oh my gosh, now that I've played with it, I'm so glad I have it.
That's it, right. That's exactly how I feel. All right, so what are you thinking? Coming down on a rating here.
So I'm coming down really high on this one. I'm coming down at a 9.5.
Oh, my goodness.
Like I said, this is everything I want in an expansion. I think it gives me more of what I love, but it provides variety for those repeat plays, gives you a little bit of focus, and just makes the game feel broken without being broken. Like, makes you feel so powerful, sets you up for those epic turns, makes you feel like you can focus. Like I said, my favorite play of this where I played this one faction and I didn't, or it's not a faction, my starting crew, and I didn't have to focus on fuel. I felt so powerful, but it was still neck to neck in that whole game. It's not like I blew it out of the water, And so I really like what it's giving me, that I can pick and choose what I add in, when I want to add in, to customize the game just a little bit depending on the play group, the play style, and kind of what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So this is, as far as an expansion goes, this just absolutely nailed it. It's everything I want in an expansion for a game that I already love. And like I said, it's the expansion that I didn't know I needed, but I'm so glad I have.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's how that works. It's that, that feeling of the game was fine, but oh wait, now that I've thrown this in, wow, it is better. And then you weren't expecting that.
Right.
I'm not coming that high. I'm very, very much enjoying this. I'm giving it a solid, strong 8. I figured you might be higher than me. I thought maybe you'd go as far as like an 8.5, but I was not expecting a 9.5. So strong 8 though. I don't like every part. That's partly why I'm docking it a little bit. And I do feel like the story stuff does change the flavor quite a bit. But I agree with you that I'm so glad this exists. If the game was getting stale, if the game was getting a little hard to have fun in that sandbox because, man, we never make it to the ship. Man, the bad guys fall over like paper people. Come on. This addresses so many of the things I had a problem with. You know? And it does so without being in your face about it. It does not feel like, oh, you want to score more? Fine, here's some ways to score that feel very direct and in your face. No, this uses the mechanisms that were there. Just expands it a little bit. I think this handles it incredibly well.
I don't think it's absolutely required, but I absolutely always want it.
If you played the game a lot, I would definitely recommend this expansion first. Like I would say, you've played a lot of Last Aurora, you're ready to mix it up a little bit. Frozen Steel is your first purchase.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there you go, folks. That's going to do it for this one. So a 9.5, that is a seal of excellence. And that's going to do it. Thank you very much. My name is Zee Garcia.
I'm Camilla Cleghorn.
Watch out for the apocalypse.